Have you ever been in a position where you're not sure how to pray for someone? I sure have. If you're like me, you might be tempted to simply pray that God would get them out of whatever difficulty they're in. Here's the problem with praying like that. How many of us are confident enough to know exactly what God's plan is for this person? Would you like a couple of prayers that you can always pray for a believer regardless of what problem they are facing, and know with 100% certainty that you are praying according to the Father's will? Well, then let me share with you a part of the prayer that Paul prayed for the believers at Colossae. You can read it for yourself in Colossians chapter 1, verses 9 through 12. The first thing that Paul prays for them is that they would be filled with the knowledge of God's will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding. I can't think of another prayer I would rather you pray for me. If I could be given direction from God to do what I ought, what could be better than that? Here's another one. Paul prays for these believers that they would please God in every way. This is a prayer you can pray for a small child all the way up to someone at the end of life. Pray that their Christian walk would be pleasing to the Lord, that they would live in such a way as to have the smile of God upon their life. Wouldn't you like people praying that prayer for you? Paul also prays that the believers at Colossae would bear fruit. As Christians, there's nothing much more important than faithfully spreading the seed of the gospel. But what's the best way? What's the best way to raise my children? How can I influence my coworkers for Jesus? How should I go about making disciples? All of this can be summed up in the prayer to God that our efforts for Christ would bear fruit. It goes right along with the first prayer of knowing God's will. Paul also prayed that the believers in Colossae would increase in the knowledge of God, that they would be strengthened with godly power so that they would attain steadfastness and patience, joyously giving thanks to the Father. When's the last time you prayed for someone who was sick that they would be given the joy of the Lord? I encourage you to spend some time reading this prayer and then ask God these things for fellow believers.